Speaker Byrd, would you give the invocation?
Yes. The most gracious Heavenly Father, we just come to you today. We come to you in a humble way to take care of the business of the tribe, guide and lead us to make decisions to betterment of our people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Speaker Byrd. Roll call, Shelley, would you do that, please?
Clay,
Here.
Tyler Bezer,
Here.
Bill England,
Honey.
Keith Austin,
Here.
Joe Byrd,
Honey.
Sean Crittenden, Mike Dobbins,
Here.
Shannon Duncan,
Honey.
Wanda Hatfield, Rex Jordan,
Here.
Mike Shambaugh,
Here.
Mary Bakershaw, Ani, E.O. Smith,
Here.
Denise Taylor, Victoria Vasquez, David Walkenstick,
Honey.
Brian Warner.
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Okay, the next on the agenda is approval of minutes for the May 13th.
I move it.
Wait a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, let's move into reports. Ms. Marcia Lamb.
Hello, Council.
Marcia.
I only have really one thing to say, and as many of you know, in the last 6-7 months, we've been hit with 3 disasters around here, different areas. And where Human Services has been asked to be a part of the emergency management, which we're really grateful for because this isn't our first rodeo. Since I've been here, this is about the 4th one. And I'm glad that they see the need for us to be there. And I'm so proud of my staff. We developed a small team so we would know what each one was doing. I'm a little short-handed, so I had to pull some people from other areas. And but one of the first things we decided to do in this team was these people are pretty devastated, and so for this disaster, we're not asking them to come into us, we're going to them. We have already been to Fort Gibson, and there wasn't a real good response, so we're going to go back. I'll be getting those dates out next week, or this week, Thursday and Friday. We're going to Weber's Falls. We're going to be at the City Hall from 10 to 3. And we've already met with the folks there, and they're putting the word out in Weber's Falls. We'll be going to Skiatook. Yeah, and you might give me a contact person there, and it may be a place to meet. I'd appreciate it. We'll be going there. And then I need to know from you if there's someplace we're not looking at that I've missed. Because it was just like bam, bam, bam. You know, it started in, I believe it was Jay with the tornado, and then it went to Pegs, and then it went to all this flooding, and now it's going downstream. And if you've ever dealt with anyone in a disaster, they don't know what to do. And so we haven't been hit completely yet. These people are going to come in. Once the enormity of it, and they're going to come to the tribe. And so, anyway, I just wanted you to know, just get with me, and we'll try to schedule it. And we're busy with other things. You know, that's not the only thing we have to do, but right now that's going to be our priority. So that's what I had to report on. So if you have any questions.
Well, Marcia, thank you for taking the initiative to get this started because it's needed out there really bad. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Councilor.
What is the first thing you would do if a victim comes in? Is it just basically their needs? If it's housing, I mean, what are we going to be able to do for our
I asked my
citizens?
staff that's been going out, and they say the first thing is they need housing, or they need housing just some information, and they need they probably need to know that they shouldn't be in there working in their homes without a tetanus shot. And so we're just trying to get just a little bit that we know. There's a team that is formulated in Cherokee Nation of the health and housing and everything. So they're trying to get all that information out and do some, what I like to see, what I appreciate that they're going to do is they're going to look at long-term. Because you've got to in something like this.
At this point, have you placed anybody, I mean, like in homes, or you're
No.
not to that point yet? It's just
It's taking the
initial
application.
application? Okay.
If someone has lost everything, I mean, it's total, it's not just a, because this is the same program we deal with on a burnout. And so it has to be based on what they've lost. So if they've lost everything, it's just it's a Band-Aid. It's $1,000. And all that's, all that's gonna get them is maybe some clothes on their back, or maybe hotel stay or something. We just give it to them and let them use it where they need it. And then we're trying to hook them up with some resources that we know of. And they also need just general information, because they don't know what to do. They really don't. And so we try to, because the staff that's going out are social workers, and they deal with these resources all the time. They have to deal with FEMA. We're just trying to give them whatever information we have.
And just because you had insurance doesn't mean you have flood insurance, and I've heard that more often, that they have good insurance, but flood wasn't, it's an entirely different entity. So
Sure.
that's going to be an issue, that people will not be able to replace their homes.
Well, flood
Because-
insurance isn't cheap either. I think
Nope.
it's the most expensive
That's
insurance
right.
you can get, but they don't need to wait on this insurance. They need help now, so.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes,
Councilor
thank you.
Vasquez.
I just wanted to tell you to pass along a big thank you to Jennifer Kirby. As is often the case, someone will call me at 4:15 on Friday, and it's panicky time, and the response from her was wonderful. Pass that along. Thank you. And thank you.
Councilor Shambaugh.
What's the EOC number? Are you familiar with that? That the Cherokee
Yeah.
Nation had the, well, I don't need it, but what is that, where does that come from?
Well, I don't have it, but it's Philip.
I mean, who does that? Who does the
Philip
EOC?
Main is the contact. I'll get it to y'all.
I've got the number.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I'm just saying, the program, what is that program? Because I've been telling people to call this number.
That's the
'cause
emergency management team.
And what are they doing for people? Do you have any
They-
idea?
Well, they're the ones that went out and did the rescue. They're the ones that are referring people also to us.
Okay.
It's just a big team effort. You'll have to ask whoever emergency management's under right now.
I know I've dealt with you on several deals here lately,
Right.
and thank you for your help. Total loss and fire and some tornado things too.
Yeah.
And just some elder things. It's terrible, but, it is kind of a Band-Aid, and it's $1,000 is nice, but boy, then when, in a week's over and you have still no place to live, and, correct me if I'm wrong, but, sometimes we look for FEMA houses and things like that as replacement homes.
Well, that's what's happening up in the Tenkiller area.
Rental.
They were hit first. That was back in December.
Yeah.
And they're still dealing with FEMA, insurance, everything. That's why I'm saying it's long
Also,
term.
and correct me if I'm wrong, not rental insurance, but rental assistance can possibly be done.
That's Gary Cooper.
Yeah. I'll get him here in a little bit then. But again, thank you for your help here in the last several weeks. I know
Gary, I helped get him in there, and Gary is the one that has the housing, so.
all right, thank you, Marcia.
Councilor Dodd.
So Marcia, should the first phone call be to the emergency management or to human services? If they need living supplies, should they just go directly to you or to
I
emergency?
think probably emergency. I think emergency management probably has the most information on what's out there, but either way, we're coordinating.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I can, first call we'd like for people to make would be to the Emergency Operations Center, the EOC. It is organized underneath Emergency Management, which is a subsection of the Marshal Service. But once we enter an emergency mode, first thing is life and safety. And it's a team that comes together to help make sure that people are put in shelters or evacuated or put in safe situations, trees, debris removed so that they can get electrical service. And then the second piece, which is the longer term and the most difficult out of all the things that imaginably, is the recovery piece. And emergency management is not really equipped and staffed to be able to sustain that. And so what we have to do is come together as all of the departments and work together through a scenario where we all work collaboratively to try and help get people restored. And it's not just internal sanitation departments, it's also coordinating through Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse, FEMA, and all of those organizations trying to figure out, okay, we can add this piece here, how can we help you here? And that's the part we're going through at this point, is trying to coordinate all of those activities between each of our communities that have been impacted. But to answer your question, if they would, please call the Emergency Operations Center first. That way we can get their queue or their name in the database. It assists us for reimbursement purposes with FEMA. It ensures that we follow up and we take care of folks. Not that Marcia's crew doesn't follow up with folks, but if they go directly to Marcia, we may not see them in our system and they may have other needs that we're unaware of. And so that's why we want to try and track those things through the Emergency Operations Center. One of the things I learned this weekend was we have to have a better protocol for once we're out of emergency mode, that phone does not get answered 24 hours a day like it was during emergency mode. And so I'm trying to work with IT to get phone systems so that they roll over so that phone is answered when people are requesting services. At this point, it just goes to voicemail, and that's not what people want to hear. So we're working on trying to get that fixed so that they're talking to a live person and they're getting their information passed along. But it's a long answer. Hopefully that answers the questions you guys are asking.
Okay, I've got Councilor Crittenden.
Yeah, Marcia, like everyone else, thank you for what you're doing on this thing. Marcia, I was going to ask you about your money situation. Had an employee text me that he's concerned that the administration of Human Services there had sent out a note saying that Human Services money's dwindling like everybody's, but to kind of be picky and choosy with who they help, and so you may or may not have sent that, but our goal is we do budget mods all the time, and I'm just me speaking here. I'd go about 90% of my stuff is Human Services and housing, of course. But if that's the case, I'd sure like to get with some of my friends here and help you out of it.
What we have done is when we get to a certain balance, and we always look at it about this time of year, we put a hold on it until we see where we are. And that's what happened. So, they were instructed to go ahead and take applications. They just can't send out promissory notes until the budget's passed.
No, that's going to be
And I have asked for additional money, so.
okay, to get us through.
Yes, sir.
And,
So I think I'm going to be fine.
is that coming out tomorrow? Is that one of them?
Should be tonight.
Tonight? All right, so the money that you put in for will make it not be put off until the budget's passed, right? These people that's applying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so,
what we usually do is we'll work with finance, because it usually takes 2 or 3 weeks before it's on the books.
mhm.
that we can go ahead and what usually they do is they'll go ahead and let us process those.
You betcha.
Yes.
So this is just a week or a few week problem, not till the budget passes in August, right?
It was just, I believe I did that Thursday.
Okay, well, that,
And I've already talked to him this
we'll
morning.
fix it. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you.
Did I do something wrong
Counselor
again?
Shaw. Counselor Shaw. You have something there, Todd?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm not sure if Marcia knows this yet or not, but we just brought over a budget mod that we're gonna ask that be introduced on the floor this evening. We did the budget mod in ENF that add the additional gen fund dollars for emergency management to cover us as we get through this next phase for a little while, and we evaluate what the real needs are. Marcia's is we're asking that it be added to the budget mod for NAHASDA emergency assistance funding, and it's to the tune of about $292,000 that we'll be asking for NAHASDA carryover funds to help Marcia's group.
Well, that's great. That's great. Now, that'll help with the flood victims, plus your everyday stuff.
Yeah. And we're
We
also,
we don't discriminate, but that's
We got
one
some
reason
money.
we have to ask.
Well, thank you so much.
we're also trying to work with some other funding entities. As you might have seen, we were touring around with the deputy principal assistant secretary looking at some of the flooding, and we're trying to see if we can figure out a way to get Marcia some additional funds from federal sources.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds
I just
great.
want money, money, money.
Counselor Shaw?
Thank you. Yes, is there a website or something for our citizens to go to that instructs them, call emergency operations first, then, Human Services Department and Red Cross? Do we have that website?
We've posted on Facebook and Twitter through social media communications. There's also been updates to the website. This weekend, we did some robocalls with Councilor Dobbins, Councilor Smith, and Councilor Warner in those areas that are affected, basically from Muskogee on east. Councilor England and others, if you guys would like to do the same things, we're also looking at getting emails. So we're trying to connect with people in as many different ways as we possibly can. Marcia's staff has taken the initiative to go to shelters and connect with them directly instead of making them come to us. So they're going to the shelters directly. So we've been the website, Facebook, Twitter, doing robocalls, and as soon as I get the email addresses, we'll have emails going out, and also instructed them how to get a hold of FEMA to get the requests and applications. So there's a website you can fill out to go directly to assistance.gov.
See, I really feel Cherokee Nation should have a designated website in this situation. Not everybody's going to go to social media, Todd, and look at Facebook and Twitter. I'm sorry. I mean, I have relatives who've lost everything, myself. And I know that to tell them, well, you can look at Facebook, I mean, I think they'd hang up the phone with me. And I really think that we need a designated website in the future to where we can even go to find the resources to refer people to. I'm amazed at the number of calls I have received, and I'm at large. So, I mean, I think I'd like to suggest that we consider that in the future, because I think it's something that's needed, that people, that counselors can say, well, don't look at Facebook, look at this website on Cherokee Nation. I think we need to be proactive and take the lead on this to help everybody.
Good advice.
Counselor Mike Shambaugh had a follow-up.
I was just going to say, it hadn't been said, but that number to the EOC is 918-453-5411. And also, it's 453-5411. And also, I didn't bring it, I wasn't thinking, but if you know people who is a veteran, on my webpage, my Facebook page, I had posted some numbers for veterans too. If you're a veteran, there's a number you can call if you're a veteran, and they give you immediate assistance too. So when I get back, I don't have Facebook on my phone, but I could send that to somebody, or all of you, I don't care, maybe to Gail, and she could post it. But they can get assistance Barbara, yes, Barbara, I can send it to Barbara. And yeah, I'll do that. I'll send it to you, Barbara, and you can send it out to everybody. How about that? Is that no? Yes? She's just giggling, so I don't know. But, okay, yes. But that's the two numbers that I've dealt with, in this disaster, so that's all I had.
Thank you, Mike. Counselor Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just probably more of a Todd thing, but during the tornado season, when it started, and the flood, we had an entire community totally blocked off up in my district and close to Victoria's district for days. And so the flood affected a lot of people, and so I gave them the EOC number when I got the call. Sometimes during those two events, the tornado and the flood, it either was busy or wasn't answered, so I gave them the Cherokee Marshal's number. And then I started giving them Marcia and Gary's number, and they said it was okay to do that. So we need to probably, and I think Todd just mentioned it, build out a number that somebody answers no matter what happens. It's like our own 911, because I'm not so sure. I had people who needed trees taken off their house, so there probably was some. But we've had deaths up in my country because of this flood. And so we helped as much as we could. And I know y'all answered those calls, and thank you. But there probably needs to be one number. This business of me having to give out 2 or 3 or 4 different numbers is good. I mean, we can do it, but it's not the best thing. And so I don't know who's going to take care of that. I know somebody will get on it. I'm already hearing it, to get one number so that the information and the needs are dispersed. Just because we call EOC and we don't need trees, but we need housing, I want to make sure that gets over to Gary. Or we need clothes, I want to make sure that gets to Marcia, or whatever department it is. I'm not certain that was fluid and easy this time, but we can make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lay. E.O. Smith.
On the food distribution side, first time people may not have all their paperwork, are we gonna waive out, let them get a one-time emergency? Can they do that Thursday when y'all come to waiver?
I can see about that. Seems like there's something going on, but I'll see about on the one time,
Yeah, the one time,
if they lost their,
they don't have their paperwork, and there's some first-time people that have never got commodities that qualify
I
now.
think we can do that.
And is it also, can you waiver that, where they have to have their food in the refrigerator? Can they get food?
Let me get
One
back
time?
with you on that.
I mean, when I say one time, I mean 1 month.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I just had to talk to a couple of people to make sure that I don't obligate somebody that for some reason they can't do, because those food distribution regulations are pretty strict on what they can do. But I did talk with Leah, and she said that if they lost their food, and I think she was talking about the perishables, that they could replace. There was a possibility that they could replace, but not new ones. She said they couldn't do new ones, but maybe a possibility we can ask for a waiver on something. Let me see what we can do.
It's first of the month, they can get their stuff now, the regular ones.
Yeah.
So that we don't. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Counselor Byrd. He's got a notice here that's got some good information on it.
This is a very simple one-page flyer that explains what this nonprofit does. It's just an idea that we could probably adopt, and it says we work with homeowners in your area, free service. This is what they do: gut flooded or rain-soaked homes, pressure wash homes as needed, mold suppression, antibacterial treatment with shockwave, pack and salvage personal belongings. And it's then it's got a number for volunteer number here. And it's got the number here for, and this is a church. We could take that same concept, and because like the council members are saying, there's too many people out there not knowing what number to call. If we can narrow this down to maybe 2 numbers, that would really be helpful, and put a volunteer line on there. If we haven't already done it, some of it we have, but we need to coordinate it a little bit better.
Is that the Mennonites? Because I know up at Tenkiller, the Mennonites
It's a
came
Baptist
in
church,
and did
yeah.
a lot of that.
And churches are involved.
Well, that's the host church,
Yes.
and there's people coming from all over the United States to help, and they're staying at that church.
Yeah.
But they're standing down there by the city hall, handing out to people as they come up, offering to help them.
I know the Baptist Association is,
Yeah.
they made that announcement.
Yeah, we need to get a central number where they can call in and get this website going, because, you know, the work begins now. You know, we've overcome all of the other stuff, but now, you know, we have to give it, make it easy for our people to get served. Thank you.
Hey, one more question here.
Just a comment, Speaker, too. Back in our side, unfortunately, we had a problem with scammers. People were coming in and scamming people, saying they were going to clean up or do this and that, and they were just going in, taking their money and leaving. Attorney General's office got involved in that, so that would probably be a good thing, too, to groups that would get with that one organization, so you would know that everything is safe.
Sure.
You know, especially people you don't know who are offering you help, and that's what's happened in our area. They have scammed a lot of our elders up there. So.
Yeah, they put a big free on their deal right there.
Yeah.
So they let
Yeah.
you know.
So,
Okay, Marcia, thank you for coming forward and offering those services. I think there's a lot of concern yet.
Yeah.
Next up is Martha Kitchen. I believe Michael Land is handling that today.
Good afternoon. Ms. Ketcher's out on travel this week, but she did ask me to relay a few things. I think you have a copy of a report. She wanted me to let you know that she's staying engaged with the National Indian Health Board, working with them on community assistance tools, capacity building, and things of that nature. A couple of things to point out, just some highlights. I think this was in our report, but our community youth development and adult resident services, they held 16 youth activities where 751 youth were present and 123 parents, community members, and Boys and Girls Club staff were in attendance. Also during that same time, they conducted 11 adult resident activities where there was 101 adult residents that had participated in that. And lastly, I want to mention for our Office of Environmental Health and Engineering Department, they're awaiting a notification from IHS for the FY19 projects that will be funded. Billy got an email just this afternoon that said they anticipate that list coming out officially Friday, but they are still waiting on those 19 projects. And lastly, I wanted to mention the Southern Delaware County Regional Water Treatment Plant is scheduled about approximately 95+% complete, scheduled for completion in late this summer. And once it is complete and accepted, they will be putting together a dedication ribbon cutting ceremony, and everyone on the council will be notified of that. It's a big project that Billy and his crews have undertaken and worked with that association, and it'll be something to celebrate once it's done. So that is our report, and be glad to answer any questions.
Counselor Taylor.
On the transit report, there's no report for prior to Catoosa, Salina to Tahlequah. Is that just a matter of, well, why is there no report, I guess is my question.
Matter of us not having the data at the time the report was submitted. We do have that now, I believe, but at the time it was submitted, that was not included. We just didn't have the information that was relayed to us from the agencies.
Okay, thank you.
I can get you that information, though.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Counselor Cricket.
Mr. Lynn, I see Billy's here. Do we have a truck that does the septic, pumps out the septic, right? Then, does that belong to the nation?
Yes, it's a tribal.
It's a tribal vehicle that we don't have to answer to the feds for that, right?
Well, we still have to comply with all the environmental rules and regulations. we do not have to answer for the vehicle itself. It's a tribally owned vehicle. It's not a federal vehicle.
And I know you're doing a good job, Billy, and you're doing what you can do, but, you know, of all things, that comes up quite a bit is, I've got a couple elders that have been backing up in their bathtub for about a month now. And I know Billy has been doing all he can do. But that's a Cherokee vehicle, Cherokee Nation vehicle. I'm gonna try to, you know, different things like we were talking about, like Speaker was talking about the, you know, that church. It seems like that that church is taking the initiative and going, but it seems like a lot of our things, like EO, can we get some food? Well, we gotta ask USDA. Can we get this? We gotta ask Nahasta. Can we get this? Can I get this truck down there to them elders so they can take a clean bath? You know, it's some of that stuff that I really want to look at, and how could we do that? Like if there's an elder and they're not, like I say, I'm not down on Billy or anybody, but just since we're talking, you know, if they're going to make up something, they can come up with something better than let's get our septic tank sucked out. I mean, they're really in need, but how could we go about using tribal dollars and saying, hey, got a couple of elders down here, and it's, you know, it's really riding on a month. How could we go about doing that legally with that money, Billy?
Let me come up there, so I'm not hollering at you from across the room.
Hey, on your way. Now, in this job, you know, we're getting fist fight tomorrow's a new day. But I do want to say, Mr. Enlow, we're going through this emergency flooding and different things, but you might whip me tomorrow, but I sure appreciate you, what you've been doing.
So, are you telling me you're gonna whip me tomorrow for?
No, I'm too fat. You can take me. I'm just saying, every day's a new day. But I sure appreciate you. Go ahead, Billy.
Well, in the specific instance you're talking about, when we have an elderly Cherokee family that needs their septic tank pumped out, we use tribal funds for that currently. We just have to make sure we've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed. We've got an application. We know they're eligible for service, and that the home that they're in is eligible. It's not somebody's rent house. We don't want to go pump out somebody's
Let me make sure I have
septic tank that's a rent
an
house.
understanding.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So tribal truck, tribal dollars.
Huh?
Now, so tribal rules that say whether you can go suck it out or not.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how big a process is that?
The process is the same initially for all our applicants. We just make sure they have the application, make sure that we've got a tribal membership card, make sure we've got their income verification, make sure we've got a copy of their deed, directions, those types of things. We get all that in, we issue a work order, whether it's to suck out their septic tank, whether it's to repair their well. Most of those kind of things, if we get a complete application, we'll have that service turned around in less than a week. If we have trouble getting information, if there's a right of entry that's required, we got to get signatures on. If there's issues with maybe they don't want to fill an application out, they say, well, I didn't have to fill one out before, but how come I got to fill one out now? Well, I can't be responsible for what happened 20 years ago. I can only be responsible for what happens right now. So, got to have the application. So, we'll go to the trouble of sending somebody out to take them an application. We'll do everything we can. We'll bend over backwards to try to facilitate what we can do to help them. Just sometimes there's issues that come up. I know with this one, I had some information that was getting relayed to me that these folks' driveway was too soft. Well, I sent somebody else out there because I kept getting this information, and frankly, I didn't believe it. So I sent somebody else out there, and he said, no, it's not too soft. They can get in there and they can pump it out. So I was going to have them go out there this morning. The two guys that were supposed to go out and do it, one of them called in sick, the other one went to a funeral. So about 10 o'clock, I called the contractor, asked the contractor to give me a quote to go out and pump the septic tank. I got a requisition entered, got it approved, got them a PO, and they were supposed to do it this afternoon. So it's just a matter of, You know, there's a lot of hiccups that can happen.
Right.
It just seems like in this case that everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It kept raining, and you know, we finally got it done, I believe, today.
How would we get away from that process with tribal dollars? I mean, those dollars, sure enough, are sovereign, right? Our tribal dollars.
If you're asking my opinion, absolutely they are. If
Okay,
if it's
so-
money that's generated by the tribe and it's controlled by the tribal council administration,
So one thing, and Billy, I mean, you've been good, so I'm frustrated at the process. Just, you know, you and your people's been there, but people that think I'm taking too much time up here need to maybe come down there too. But, I mean, they needed it done, and one time they didn't have the right deed. Well, come to find out, we had it on file somewhere here. We got that, and it was just, and it's not the only time I've, with the septic thing, and that, the process is what I'm frustrated at. Just, it's, are you following me? I mean, you know what I mean? Just, hey, Cherokee Nation elders, we all been knocking on doors talking about elders, myself included. But, you know, maybe it's too simple-minded, but that's a month without it being done, and it's not your fault, it's the process. But is that possible to have that tribal truck sitting there, maybe even create a job with, you know, your job is to suck these septic tanks out, and by golly, maybe even buy another one.
well, we actually have two. We've got one in Bull Hollow and we've got one in Tahlequah. So we've got one that runs up to the northern part of the nation. We've got one in the southern part of the nation. The guys at Bull Hollow pump those tanks out up there, and they take that septage to the Kenwood lagoons. The ones that are pumped out down here get taken to Cherokee. The issue is, you know, I've got a policy and procedures I have to follow, just like everybody does.
I know you're doing it.
If there's a change that can be made in that policy, and administration will approve it, they will expedite that and allow me to provide services.
I know you would.
I'm
But
all for it.
It's policy change.
Yes.
Tribal policy. Now, okay. So we can, now that's administration policy, right?
Well, we could change policy. That's what we need to do.
Well, thank you. And like I said, frustration not at you, but just visiting with those folks. We kind of need to change something. Oh, Talina might have a big old fat buddy on typing up some stuff for me.
Well, like
We're gonna be visiting.
I will tell you this. You know, when I first took over, all of our applications were paper. If somebody's application got lost, it was start over. We have digitized everything. So if these folks, once we get them served and we get everything complete in our system, if they call me back 6 months and we need to go pump their septic tank out again, if I've got all their information, I don't make them fill anything else out. We do a work order and we go do it. It's just getting that initial stuff set up so that we've got a complete file in our office with all the information. And if nothing has changed, if they're still elders on fixed income and they live in the same house, we don't make them go through any of that again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any more questions for Michael Lynn? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Billy.
You bet.
Next up is housing, Gary Cooper.
Good afternoon. So a couple of things. First, yes, we work hand in hand with Marcia. A lot of times she gets a call or referral from emergency management, or I do, and we work hand in hand. If someone just needs, I think to go along with the question you asked, if someone just needs to be put up for a few nights or something, Marcia can help with that. If someone needs to be relocated more long-term, 30, 60, 90 days, then yes, we have an emergency or temporary rental assistance program that helps with that. It is funded out in the HOSTA funds, so they do have to be income eligible. But we do have a program that can help with rental assistance and things of that nature. and we have been working with Marcia and her group. Seems like about every day for the last few months, just on these, because this has been an ongoing process. We were lucky. I think we had about 15 homes that sustained some type of damage in between northern Cherokee County all the way up to the J area, but nothing was substantial or major. We were notified the day after the tornado came through, I think about 7, 8 o'clock that morning, that the J area was without water. So we sent a pallet of water up to our office. I will give it up to my staff. I had a couple of people who volunteered to make sure that the office was open, that they were there at the same time they were supposed to be every day, knowing that there wasn't water or anything there, just to make sure that the office was open. But since we have about 130, 140 folks who live in either our apartments or the elderly apartment next door, we made sure that they had water available for that. We also had a crews out assessing some of the homes that we had in the area to make sure if they had any damage that got reported to insurance and so on and so forth. And I had folks that was cutting down trees off of, helping people wherever they did. And we didn't ask if it was one of our homes or not. If we was in a neighborhood and someone needed a tree cut off a roof, we took care of it. A couple of things that I do want to mention is college housing. It's hard to believe that we're in summer already. We'll start taking the college housing applications next month. The applications will be accepted July 29th through August 9th. And those applications will be available before then, and as soon as they're available, I'll let you know by email. It also comes out through communications that says those are available, and they're available on our website. Last week, I think probably middle of the week, HUD finally released the estimates for the 2020 Indian Housing Block Grant. So we have those now. We've been working at we've been asking all the departments to get us their information so we can get the Indian Housing Plan done for this year. Since we just got those numbers last week, we wasn't able to put anything together today, so we'll be bringing that back in July. The bad thing is it's due July 18th. Back to HUD, they've gotten later and later about getting those to us, and there's a really quick turnaround that can be amended at some time. At any time, really, but it is due on July 18th to them. So we'll be working to get that done. I will just give you a heads up so it doesn't come as a shocker to you whenever you see it. The estimates for FY 2020, the numbers HUD has to use it for the estimates are based on what the request was from the president and the president's budget request. So it's at $598 million. Our portion is about 28.6 estimated. Just to give you an idea of where that number is, when the hospital was first funded in 1999, the annual appropriation was $613.9 million. So the request for this year is at $598 million. Good thing is that most appropriators just use that book as a doorstop and don't pay any attention to it. They kind of do their own thing. So we are grateful for that, and we'll work with them. House T-HUD approach did do their workup, and they were proposing the HOS to be funded at $671 million, so that'd be 20-some million over current year, and continue the competitive IHPG. So there's $200 million in the competitive grant that just became available. We will be working on submitting an application for that. The maximum amount allowed under that is $5 million, so we will be applying for the max for that and hope we will be awarded that. Tribal HUD VASH, just kind of give you an idea, we have served over 40 families. I think last time I checked, it was 42 families that we've served since this program started. It started out as a demonstration project. HUD has for homeless veterans that weren't being served through the non-tribal program. So we have 20 spots available. They've asked if we might be interested in expanding those, and we said, of course, yes. And it's still a demonstration project right now. There are two bills, both one in the Senate and one in the House, that would make that a permanent program. So we'll follow those and see how those come along this year. I think usually every now and then I give you an update of employees. At the end of April, we had 220 employees. 94.5% were Cherokee and 98.6% were Native American. So I think that's what I have for right now. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Counselor Walkington.
Gary, what was the number, the dollar amount we got last year?
I don't. For last year,
Was it an increase or decrease from what they're projecting they're going to give us this year? Was it a decrease?
what we actually got was about it was just a little shy of $2 million more than what last year's estimate was.
It was 2 million less.
No, more.
Oh, 2 million more.
The estimate's always less than what the actual appropriation is.
Okay.
So this year's estimate for us is 28.6. We generally get somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 31 million,
So it's 2 million less.
at least.
The their question is dealing with the storms that ripped through Jay and those other areas. Is there any way, or is there a grant or something we could put into the HUD grant for storm shelters for those low rent housing facilities that have all of our Cherokee elders in there?
ICDBG, and of course, we a couple of years ago, working with Head Start, they submitted the application to put those put storm shelters at several Head Start facilities, including 2 properties that we own. We provide the location for Head Start at Pryor and Nowata. And so we worked with them to get those put in. I think they're working on those, finishing those up this year. So, I mean, that was done for that. That's a grant that comes available every year. 18, the grant just came in for. We did put it in for rehab. 19, we don't know when that will come available, if it probably later on this year. But yeah, that is the only grant program that I know of, is the ICDBG program.
That's good information to know.
Yeah.
Is it the Summerlin edition? And Jay, is that what it is? Summerfield. Is there a way that we could request to get them put on the list? The Summerfield low rent housing units.
Yeah, we can look and see. But yes, we always look at that, and we had planned on doing a storm shelter project, and Head Start had asked to do that under ICDBG, and that made the most sense to fund those projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the one program, assuming that it continues on. It was zeroed out in the president's 2020 budget, but assuming appropriators continue to do that, it's about $800,000 that we can apply for. 800, with a $200 and something thousand match. So it's about a $1 million grant.
That's good to know. All right, thank you, Chair.
Any more questions for Gary? Counselor Dobbs.
Gary, what was that number for those looking for flood shelter, that 30, 60, 90 day window? What was that number? Number?
They can call our office, and if they've been through Marcia, they've already gotten the information and gotten it over to us. So 456-5482.
What was that, 54?
5482. That don't matter what county you live in. That gets you in contact with all our offices and gets you out to where you need to go.
You have to be income eligible.
Yeah, you do have to be income eligible for that program.
So if they're not income eligible, there's no Cherokee assistance, is that correct?
No, we don't. The only we get a small amount of tribal funds to help with housing rehab, but that's it. Not on the rental side, no.
Thank you, Chair.
Counselor Light.
Just a quick one, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we, through Amaran, do we do flood insurance, or do they do it?
I'll have to go back and check. I don't know, because the problem is with all of the federal funds that we use, it requires that the property has flood insurance. So any of the houses that we built aren't in a floodplain. over the years. None of those are in a floodplain. So I'm not 100% sure that they offer it or not, but I can check and see. And we'd be talking about two different sides, because what they offer us on the managed unit side is different than what they offer an individual. But I can check if that's what you'd like me to do. Yep.
Any more questions for Gary?
And I will just add, because I forgot, but I think in one of the committees last month, someone was talking about census. And I will ask you to remind your folks, the census is coming up, but there's also the American Community Survey that's done every year. If folks get that, they need to fill it out and be truthful and honest with it, because that's where the numbers come from that go into the formula that divvies up how Nahasta is divided up. So it asks for things like household income, how many people are living in the home, is there more people? And folks need to be honest. So, if it's grandma living in the home and she doesn't want to say, well, is anyone more than me, just because, I'm the only one supposed to be living here. The only folks that see that is census for her individually. If there's, 8 folks living in the home, be sure to report that, because that is one of those numbers that goes into the formula and how the Nahasta dollars are divided up whenever it comes. So I just want,
When's that coming out?
Now, the census will be done in next year, 2020, but every year there is a number of households. They don't do the long form anymore. They don't do the census long form anymore, so the numbers that Nahasta comes from was based on the 2000, I think was the last time the long form was done. But just on, and no, Amarin doesn't offer flood insurance. They don't. But the American Community Survey, they sample a small number of households every year, so it's an ongoing process. So don't just talk about census, but also make sure that your folks filled that out. Because that came up a lot. I served on the negotiated rulemaking committee, and we looked at like 50 different sources, and the only source that was consistent and constant that we could use to base the Nahasta formula on was the census. So we used both the decennial census and the American Community Survey that asked the detailed questions.
Thank you,
That's
Gary.
my spiel today.
Another question.
On the, real quick.
Yeah.
On the storm shelters.
Yes.
Um,
Individual or
yes, individual, you're talking preference to elders?
elderly, handicapped, and disabled.
And
income eligible, handicapped, elderly, and disabled family, Cherokees, because it is
that's-
tribal funds.
That's the program, that's the 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you all.
Hey, next up is Michael Lynn. Road and Transportation. And I'm going to ask Michael Lynn to cut this short unless there's any specific questions that we need to ask Mr. Lynn.
Any objection?
No, sir, no objections. I
Do you have anything you need to tell us, Michael?
I would like to say I did email Councilor Taylor the information that she was requesting for the ridership. Those were just late reports that we got and didn't make it on our council report.
Thank you, sir.
But you should have them. No, I'm good unless there are any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Councilor.
Can you go ahead and tell Ms. Nodine to go through with the District 3 roads project that was requested by our county commissioner, Cliff Hall?
You're approving those to move forward? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we'll do.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Michael, is there anything important that you need to tell us today?
Now, I'm just going to give an update on the projects, but...
Okay, we'll forego those today and
Okay.
we'll catch them next month.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Commerce, Miss Anna Nine, I see Shay's here for the report.
Hello.
Hi, Shay.
I'll make this real quick unless you have questions. I just want to mention you guys keep talking about the storm shelters. I know specifically those were related to some of the schools and housing projects, but just know that the Individual Development Account Program, also known as the iSave program, that's available to individuals. They can utilize that program to purchase a storm shelter for their personal residence. Has to be their primary residence. And just a quick reminder, they must be NAHASDA eligible individuals. They save up to $1,000 in a savings account. We then disperse $3,000 in matching funds, which is typically enough to purchase a small storm shelter. So just keep that in mind if you have people contacting you about a storm shelter for themselves personally.
No.
And so that's income-based.
It is income-based, 80% of the national median income.
Any
And other
questions
than
for Shay? Shay, is there anything else you want
No.
to elaborate on?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up is Nikki Baker, Lattimore for Indian Child Welfare.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Everyone has my report, and I'll also keep it short unless you have any questions. The McIntosh home did open on Friday, and so that was a beautiful ribbon cutting. And if you want to get on Facebook and go to the McIntosh Home Foundation, you can watch it there on Facebook. They videoed that, I believe, live.
Very good. Is there any questions for Ms. Lattimore? Well, we'll catch you next month.
Okay, thank you very much.
Community and Culture Conference, Kevin? Hi, Donnie.
So Kevin Stretch is on the Remember the Removal Bike Ride. He's our interim director, so I am, I suppose, the interim director until he returns on June 21st. And so if anything's needed, just give us a call. We're always there to help. So I normally don't work on the capacity building CADA side, so I asked Tammy to be here. So you have the report. If you have any questions, I'm sure Tammy can answer anything.
What I'd like to do is go ahead and let you have the opportunity for Donnie to give us some information as far. I know there's a program coming up in July.
Yes.
And you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, I will. Our annual conference is going to be July 12th and 13th. The banquet will be the evening of the 13th at 5:30. This is for all the organizations that we work with, locally and at large. So we welcome you all to attend. Are there any questions?
If you would send out, or have somebody send us an email out for that again and remind us of the activities,
I will.
I'd appreciate it.
I sure will. I believe we gave a formal invitation, but we are happy to send that again.
Sure, please send it again.
Sure.
Is there any questions for Donnie or?
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I just want to say, we are able to accommodate 500 people at our new casino and conference center, and we have about 496 signed up, local and at large. So you as representatives will see your constituents there. So we hope you come out.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Culture Group? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, no.
Moving on down to old business, I see none. And we've got new business. And let's see. Bill, you want to take this resolution and introduce it?
Sure. This is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Office of Veterans Affairs to apply for a Veterans Cemetery Grants Program on behalf of the Cherokee Nation to establish a veterans cemetery, and I would move for its approval, and if Barbara would like to come.
I hear a second that motion.
Second.
All approved, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, same sign.
Do you want this to go forward tonight, Barbara?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Barbara, you want to come on up?
Can we open
Barbara,
this up for discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some questions that I have with this.
And before we get started, I have mentioned this to some of our veteran friends and stuff.
Yes, sir.
And they're very excited about it. They just want to know where it's going to be. They want to make it available.
Martin, who's your guest with you there?
Robin Allen from our grants department.
Okay.
Robin, you will be writing the grant.
We will participate in that. We have a coordinator that will work with Barbara and her team writing the grant and putting the application together. Yes.
Okay. The only, one of the questions that I had is serving all tribes in this is going to be quite a task. Most traditional families will have their veterans probably buried close to their families. So, I don't know, I don't have the numbers, what are we projecting here, where the cemetery might be. I don't know what kind of liability are we getting ourselves into if we're gonna serve all people, all tribes, all non-tribal members. And I know the chances of getting funded will probably be higher if we keep it general like that. And that's some of the question that I have is, it's difficult right now to take care of the cemeteries that we have. I know in my little community back home, it's almost a daily task to keep people out of that cemetery that are not even from there. We have visitors that come, they'll be from out of state, say, I have a kinfolk that lives here, and can I be buried here? And it's hard to say no. So those are the type of questions that I have with this. The concept is great, don't get me wrong. I support veterans. I've got a brother, a father, a grandfather, and I'm going up down the line. But there are just some questions that I have there.
Well, we do understand this first application process is the planning, and the July 1st deadline is for the pre-application, and we'll get all those questions answered once the organization and the agency starts to help us. And they have been really helpful so far in guiding us, and will continue to guide us through till the full application is due.
Okay.
And they've said they'd come down and visit with us and kind of hold our hand all the way through.
Okay. How much of a grant are we talking about? This is more of a planning grant?
This is just the preliminary. It's like a pre-app.
Okay.
The only thing that they're wanting from us is something from our council in chief, and they want a picture of our land plot, and they just kind of want to tell us, how big, or there's different levels, like a remote, a small, medium, and large, and so we just kind of have to give them some kind of target with that. For them to just kind of get us in line, and then they will come and hold our hand and walk through the whole grant with us.
Okay.
Now, I do have you talked about location. I do have something, a picture here that I'd like to pass around, if you don't mind.
Barbara, you might just tell us what the location is. Probably looking at the pictures, we're not going to know where it is.
Okay.
Just a general.
It's just on the other side, the proposed land, but it is not in concrete. The proposed land is just on the other side of the golf course, but it's, where the driving range is, it's over from that.
Which golf course? Sequoia.
Sequoia's golf
Across
course.
the powwow ground,
Yes.
culture grounds.
Up on the hill there.
Yes.
Councilor Austin, I think you're up next.
I notice on the fourth whereas, it says, whereas Cherokee Nation commits and obligates the trust fund necessary to operate the cemetery for no less than 20 years.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
That would be our commitment with them if we do go through with this, is our 20 years. To take care of it for 20 years is what we're saying that we would do.
So what happens at the end of 20 years? We move vets?
Well, either that or we would ask for additional years, and I do.
What happens if we don't get approved in 20 years?
Good question.
They're still going to be buried forever.
Yeah. These are some questions we can definitely get with
Yes.
the agency and get some
find out.
feedback, because we surely don't want to.
Well, but what I'm concerned about, this is, we're applying for a grant, but this resolution saying, whereas we commit. Am I misunderstanding something?
Well, the resolution, once the pre-application is July 1st. So to be a priority and be able to receive their guidance, they need to know that the tribe is on board and wants to continue and go on. So they would come and pretty much help us through the whole application. And we can definitely put that to the agency and see what they would recommend. And it might be that we do not want to do a full application. So at this point, it's just kind of giving us the knowledge and information to see if, as a tribe, we want to pursue this.
So at that point, it would come back to us for further approval?
We would have to come back to you for all, your input.
Okay. I love the idea of us having a national cemetery. I don't love the idea of us committing ourselves to care for non-tribal citizens from now till eternity with tribal dollars for something that is not limited geographically or by tribal status.
I'm getting some guidance from our director, Tanya, that's on travel, or she would have been here today. So the cemetery will be there forever, she assures us. There is a $45 million that's available, and we will be reimbursed for the operation and maintenance of the cemetery. So I guess that's good to know that it's there forever. The vets will be honored in perpetuity.
So there will be ongoing funding for this? Because that's not in this proposal.
My understanding is that they would pay for building the facility. But
That was what I was explaining, but not
my
for the
understanding is that
ongoing.
we are supposed to maintain it.
It says
They
here.
pay for everything to build it, but we will have to maintain it.
Yes, the next whereas says, "We assume all responsibility for operation and maintenance in accordance with the operational standards and measures of the National Cemetery Association," but it doesn't talk anything about the funding. This talks nothing about operational funding.
We can, is there an option to amend the resolution and bring it back, or how, what do you recommend?
There's some language that he doesn't like.
If there's language that
Yeah.
you'd like to change, we certainly can.
This what is the last date that we can put in for this grant?
July 1st is our deadline.
July the 1st is the deadline.
Or is it just the preliminary? Not for the full-blown grant, just to tell them that we want to do this, but we have to come back with them and get all the information put together before we could, complete the complete application.
I guess the other question I've got real quick is, if we go ahead and get the planning grant, and we came back and meet again, is there different options that we could take from the grant? Like, can we limit it to Native Americans only?
We can apply for either way that you would choose, but what they've told us so far is that if we apply for the National Cemetery and we are open for all veterans, that we would be higher on the priority list to be funded. And if we just go to strictly tribal, it will drop us down quite a bit on the list, getting on the list.
So what you're saying, there's going to be an option later that we could find. We have two more questions here, and we'll move on. Councilor Dobbins.
That hadn't been settled yet, whether it's going to be tribal only veterans or has not been settled yet.
That's correct.
But you said you have a higher rate of acceptance if it's open to all veterans, similar to what Fort Gibson National Cemetery
Yes.
qualification. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councilor Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I've heard several things here, but it's not Cherokee citizens only. It's anybody. That's what this says.
That's open to all veterans.
And this says we're committing. It doesn't say we're applying for a planning grant. It says we're committing and we're going to commit that 20 acres and that's the way it's going to be, 20 acres of trust land right in our cultural area, I think. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
Right across from the powwow, which we'll move over there someday. We're already full on the powwow.
We were looking at that for parking, because we're already overloaded over there the way it is.
And so at Fort Gibson, they're telling me they only accept cremations because they're out of space. So if we accept everybody for this thing, it will quickly fill, I think. Is that?
Can I answer
that's
you?
what I'm, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've talked to the Fort Gibson Cemetery, and they say they will not be full there until 2035 is their prediction, because they have acquired additional land.
Okay. And so I guess I'm concerned about Cherokee Nation Trust land with everybody being able to be buried, not just Cherokee citizens, right next to our cultural grounds. And we're committing to that today. Your vote is not to get a planning grant. Your vote is to commit it today. And if I'm wrong, Talina, tell me I'm wrong, but this vote today would be to commit to doing the full-scale program.
It's the planning, it's the planning piece.
That's not what it says here.
If I can try to answer some of the questions that you guys are asking. The actual resolution itself does not state that it's Cherokee only, all veterans. It's just stating that we would set aside 20 acres. And Councilor Austin, to answer your question about why the 20 years, that's the initial grant program that they request people plan for, is you need to estimate your population and your growth and operate this for a minimum of 20 years on your initial funding. Then we could go back and say, okay, for 20 years, we're going to set aside 20 acres. Then we have the option to go back if we see that we're growing. We could add another 20 years, ask for additional money, expand our operations, and get more money. No, it does not cover operation and maintenance. However, the grant initially would allow us to build out every piece of infrastructure on that property, curb, guttering, streets, buildings, fences, get everything set up. It also allows us to buy equipment. So lawnmowers, seeders, backhoes, whatever equipment we need to operate and maintain that, we could actually acquire that with initial funds. This resolution is basically stating that we would like to do the exploratory. We do the additional testing on the soils. We work through it with the VA. We come up with a design plan, and we present it and say, based on our population, we either wish to, the council's wishes, we either wish to limit to Cherokees only, or we leave it wide open, or we do natives only.
That's not what this resolution states. What you just stated is not correct according to the written word. Sir.
It says establish a veteran cemetery. If you just read the headline.
Correct, but that we wish to establish a veteran cemetery through the Veteran Affairs. It does not say that it's restricted or wide open. It's just a veteran cemetery. It's not implying that we are going to do one thing or another. They give us the option as we go through the planning piece to determine how we wish to offer the
I'm
services.
sorry, I hate to argue with you, you're a smart man, but that's not what this says. The written word is what is going to be gone by once we pass this. If I'm incorrect, let me know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, I've got a couple more ahead of you, Mr. Austin. Do you have any more, Councilor Light?
I'd like to hear other folks speak about this, but if I could have the floor, I'm going to make a motion, we pass it for 30 days, if you will allow me to do that, once everybody gets their...
Well, I think, okay, but just to answer your question, I think the application got to be in July 1st.
Yes.
So we won't have that option, so. Anyway, we'll go ahead and go around.
We have the option to do our own people.
Yeah.
Anytime we want to.
But what I'm saying, that application has to be in July. Councilor Walkenstick.
All right, thank you. This is my district. I grew up in that area my whole entire life. Cherokee National Holiday, powwow, ran cross country through the field. I'm not really excited about the location of where you guys are proposing on putting that. I think it's a great concept, great idea. But as well as, I like it to be an all Cherokee cemetery, because a lot of other tribes do that, and I'm in favor of that. But I can't pass this with the location it's in right now. If you guys would, move it to another location. I don't know where a good location is at right now, but it's not the best location for our people around here in Cherokee County. So, and also, I've been in the grant business, so you guys are doing a request for proposal, RFP, saying you're interested in doing the grant. And then once you send the RFP off, they'll send you guys the actual grant to write and start going forward and putting your budget and your line items and what your objectives are and all that good stuff. So, with saying all that, it sounds like we need to vote on this today. And Chairman, if you would, I don't know what the protocol is for Robert's Rules of Order, but I like to rescind the vote and then vote on this again, because we didn't have an opportunity for discussion before we voted.
Exactly.
And so if you would, let's back up and take another vote when everybody gets done with their discussion.
We're still in discussion.
Well, we voted on it.
We actually voted on it because we didn't get a discussion period.
So I make a motion, we rescind the vote. Is that right?
I second that motion.
To vote again, take another vote.
And then,
Okay, we're gonna vote on to rescind the vote that we just had. All in favor, say aye.
Wait, a second.
yeah, he seconded.
I'm moving fast.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any approved, same sign.
And we're still in discussion now.
Now we wanna make another motion to go into discussion on it. Do you wanna do that?
You don't have to make a motion to go into discussion.
We're in discussion now.
Okay, we're in discussion now. Okay,
That's all I have, Chairman.
we had Councilor Crittenden and then Councilor Shaw.
Right. My question earlier was just that, let's say this gets approved tonight, okay? And I think it's been answered since then, but it's gonna come back to us for, if it really gets approved. This is just saying we're kinda interested.
Right.
And it's all a proposal, even the land.
No, that's not the way that works.
Right,
Go
then,
by the written word on this document. The document says what it says. I don't care how many lawyers or Todd stands up there and tells you different. You go by the written word. If you pass this, it passes, period.
the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
As is.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Shaw.
I'd like to start by saying I think this is a fantastic idea, but now I want to come back. That was before I saw the location. I'm horrified we're going to put a cemetery possibly by our school where our kids go. I'm sorry, I think this is a terrible location. Are we locked into the location?
No,
Have you seen
we're
that?
not.
Okay, and next thing, how many graves are we expecting in, say, 20 years at National Cemetery? I want to do the math. We're at 750 a grave, because that's what the VA will pay, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, times how many graves? I'm worried about the perpetual maintenance of this cemetery. I mean, in 20 years, it sounds like we're covered, if I'm understanding you correctly. I want to know, after 20 years, if we put this 750 in some type of fund, will we grow that fund, and will we not touch that fund to where that money is left in perpetual time? Yeah, thank you. To where we can maintain this cemetery without a harsh, without putting a burden on our Cherokee citizens for other things. I want to know, are those figures available? Have you all thought that out?
No, because we haven't worked on the budget portion yet.
Is that how you anticipate we will fund it? We say the 750 per grave for 20 years, and then that money is set aside that no one's going to touch. to maintain this cemetery. Have you all, is that what you're thinking? Because that's how I see it, if I'm gonna vote
We
for
would,
this.
we would hope that the money would be put right back in and used for, the maintenance of the cemetery.
Okay, very good. The location is not locked in if you send this in though, right? Because I think that's
No.
a terrible, terrible choice to put a cemetery by that school. I don't know who thought of that, but when I really fell in love with this idea. I have talked to some of our citizens at large, veterans, and they are all fully supportive, and I want to share what they said. When you're in the service and you come out a veteran, everybody's your brother regardless of your race. And I was not told by any of these veterans that I touched base with not to support this. I want to share that with you, that everybody is a brother that's a veteran, regardless of race. Thank you.
I think Councilor Austin, you were.
I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not now or never. This is now, and it can be reapplied for a year from now.
If we
So
don't,
this is not
if we
now
don't,
or
we'd
never.
have to, wait a year.
With that being said, I think there's way too many questions, because we could revisit this and actually get all the questions answered and do this a year. We know that we know that Fort Gibson has the ability to handle veterans until 2035, we understand. So we're not in a now or never situation.
Councilor.
What we could do if, we're really tying ourselves to the federal government again by having them dictate to us how to do our cemetery. If we need to do a feasibility study on our own, we don't have enough data right now. We don't have a site, we don't have a budget, we don't have projections. We can appropriate funds for you guys to go and do a feasibility study and give us some numbers back, with how many graves are we talking about here? Okay, where's the site going to be? We can do all of that, but we need to do that on our own without the federal government this go around. Then we can apply for the grant later. I think there's just too many questions right now, and that's just me. I think it's a great idea, don't get me wrong. But if we took our Cherokees and we went to another tribe, Western Oklahoma, said, could you take care of our Cherokees? I don't know what kind of answer you'd get.
Thank you. Councilor Shannon.
Well, I've read this, and I don't see anywhere here where it says where we have to do it. And also, it doesn't say anything about bringing anybody else in, or whether we want to have it open for anybody. It just basically says that we are going to appropriate money for a veteran cemetery. Doesn't say where, doesn't say who. I assume that if we do decide to do this, then again, we will have to make those decisions on where it'll be and whether or not everybody gets in or just Cherokees, correct?
Right. Correct.
So saying that, say this did pass tonight in full council. And we do put in for the grant. How soon will we know that if that grant's passed or not, if we get the grant or not?
No, I think it's just a planning period. Will determine probably on how they guide us.
So we don't know when.
Estimated that we would start October 1st with the fiscal year.
But before we could do that, we would, if we reward the grant, then we would have to determine, or no, now do we have to say before we get that grant, because didn't you say that if we're gonna allow everybody, we'll have a better chance of getting it?
Well,
Or more funding?
So this planning phase, there's not an award from them. It's basically them sitting down and working through this with us. So you guys understand, when we started the process, we looked at all tribal trust land that we had in the area. We evaluated that criteria based on 7 or 8 criteria that they recommended and they require us to have. One is going to be quiet, needs to be a quiet location. It also needs to have the hydrology and hydrography to support it. So we can't have a water table that's too high. We had several pieces of property that we looked at that the water table was too high. We looked at the soil criteria to determine if it was too rocky and if we were going to have to do blasting and have rock soils every time we wanted to bury a veteran in that location. And so we eliminated several of those. Now we have other locations that are tribal trust land that we think might be suitable. But based on the initial data that we looked at, we didn't think that property rose to the top. Based on all the criteria that the Veteran Affairs Administration requires on all veteran cemeteries, we felt like this one that we proposed rose to the top. That's not to say that one of the other 7 or 8 properties that we felt were good criteria and met most of the options, we might be able to go in and do additional survey testing with the VA, and they say, absolutely, this would be a prime location. To answer some additional questions, interments in the Fort Gibson Cemetery, there are 24,000, almost 25,000 that are interred in the Fort Gibson Cemetery on about 33 acres. They've acquired additional acreage, now they're up to a little more than 50, that's why they've had that expansion. So the 24,000, and that's prior to statehood. What we estimated based on our population size and people, even if we left it wide open, we estimate that we would have 110 interments a year. So over 40 acres, there's several thousands of veterans that could be buried in that location. So depending on this initial planning phase, we go through, we do all that assessment, we go through the design, we do soil testing, we make sure that it meets all the criteria that the VA is comfortable with, that we've satisfied their criteria. And if they give us the green light that this property and everything that lines up to it satisfies their requirements, then we're allowed to actually submit for it. We're estimating that grant submission, based on comparable size of other folks that were awarded, if we did it wide open for all veterans, it would be somewhere between a $9 and $10 million construction. Takes about 18 months to 3 years from start to finish to construct that entire facility. And there's lots of requirements that they have in their VA cemetery. There's 8 features that are required in each VA cemetery.
So I guess in the end, if this passes today or tonight, we are actually not locked in to doing anything. Is that correct? If we go through these negotiations and we can't come to an agreement on this, we're not locked in to do this, are we?
That's my belief in that. I'm sorry, Councilor Lay. It's my opinion that we tried to keep this resolution generic enough that we did not specify how we were going to write the grant, what the land is for, is this that we support a proposed VA cemetery. We just support one.
Can we reword it? Can we reword this? We're gonna vote on it?
Yeah,
Hey,
excuse me.
wait a minute here. Got a
The
question.
speaker would like to say something.
Is it not possible to reword this, to say what they're saying that it's supposed to say tonight?
Let me have a stab at it.
Okay, go ahead.
And,
Sure.
sorry,
Go ahead.
she said to go ahead, I thought. I was okay.
Who's running this meeting? Scepter, yes, you may speak.
On the third whereas, I would like to propose that we change the establishment of the veteran cemetery, the establishment of a Cherokee veteran cemetery in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And we didn't say anywhere about this property, did it, in here that you guys saw?
No.
Okay, so we're still open on that. And I put that in form of a motion.
Do you need
Wait,
to change
you
the
need to change
headline?
The headline needs to change too.
Okay,
It said
change,
planning.
show me, help me, tell me.
I would
Well,
think
what
just a veteran cemetery for Cherokee veterans would be
Cherokee
adequate.
Veterans
Just add
Affairs.
that on the end. What do you think, Mary?
We are obligating trust land now. Okay, so we don't have this trust land everywhere.
That's right.
So there's only limited space
Limited
that
space.
would be that many acres of trust land.
And
Is that correct?
I don't think most of us like this space right here, is that correct?
I'm excited about this national cemetery for Cherokees with a different site.
Just out of curiosity, clarify for me, are we talking Cherokee only, or are we talking a national? Let's vote on that. Can I make a motion that we vote
Wait
on
a
that?
minute.
You can't
Well,
do that.
I've made a motion on
But,
Cherokee.
but
to change
his
it.
motion is for Cherokees only.
Yeah.
Let's word this correctly, make sure we're all in agreement. He's restricting it to Cherokee only.
And Cherokee Veteran Cemetery.
Okay?
And she's,
And up the top, change it to, for a Cherokee Veteran Cemetery on the second line.
Councilman, if you make that a friendly, then the sponsors can just
I
accept it.
could make that a friendly.
I'd be happy to accept it.
Kanan did, and
I'm not ready.
Okay, so let's get this strike out here. Barbara or
Yes.
Helene, are you taking notes here
I'm trying
as
to,
to how we
yes.
can change this?
Taking notes?
Marina,
I'm trying to keep track of the motion.
Shelley's got the motion.
Dick,
Yes, ma'am.
shouldn't it be Cherokee Nation to establish a Cherokee Veteran Cemetery on the end of it? 'Cause in
On the
title-
top line?
Because at the first, it's to apply for a veteran cemetery grants program on behalf of Cherokee Nation to establish a Cherokee Veteran Cemetery.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that correction.
Or you want Cherokee in both places?
I don't think it's necessary if you don't.
Scratch that one and add it.
Can I ask a question?
I've got Councilor, we're going to take two more comments and then we're going to take for the vote. Councilor Austin?
Yes, a question. Does the current national cemeteries allow spouses to be buried with the veteran, correct?
Yes.
Of course, spouses are not necessarily Cherokee. So see, you opened that can of worms.
I have a suggestion that I'm not sure if it's doable. Since nothing's set in stone, could you amend this resolution to bring whatever is approved, whatever grant is approved, back in front of council for approval? Since we don't know, it seems like there's questions about where the location is, where the, who we're going to.
We won't have those answers till after the planning year.
Okay.
But if it's not set in stone.
It's the cart in front of the horse, is what it is.
Can I answer a question?
I still have four, I believe.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Can I answer you on that,
Yes.
Councilman? But the plot that you're talking about, though, usually in the National Cemetery, the spouse is in the same grave.
Correct.
So that will still be if our Cherokee veteran's grave, even though his spouse is in the same grave. They're buried together.
Okay.
Non-tribal or not,
Well, then-
it still will be his spot.
We would need though to make sure, if we can't say Cherokee only and then bury non-Cherokees in it, we would have to say Cherokees and spouses of Cherokees. In order, or we're actually making it illegal to bury a spouse.
All right, I'm going to take one more, then we're going to call for the vote.
Okay.
These are separate motions though.
Okay.
No, I didn't make a
You
motion.
didn't make a motion.
It's just, I have a motion, I just have a question. Okay, so if we say all veterans, our application goes, and they look at it a little quick. If we just say Cherokee, what's gonna happen?
It's going to drop down in priority, but
Okay,
and we
you said that.
asked that question, but they couldn't tell us how far that would be.
Okay.
So we did ask that question, but we didn't get an answer on that because it depends on how many people apply. Just like if we was to wait till next year, there'll be, so many more apply before us.
Okay, we've kicked this around enough. It is 5:35, 37.
Call for the
Mr.
question.
Slay has a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. And Shelley, would you read that motion to us?
Do we have a motion and a second for approval?
Yes. Okay, let's take a vote on the motion and approval.
We made a
Trying to
motion
do
and
it
a second.
friendly.
We rescinded the original one. Now we're back to a motion.
I know, but
What amendments did we make? Let's clarify that.
trying to make it
We made
friendly.
it friendly.
Shelley's got them.
And it was friendly, and it was to, on the third whereas, to say establishment of a Cherokee Veteran Cemetery.
Right.
Got that?
And the other one was to establish, at the bottom line, up at the top, to establish a Cherokee Veteran Cemetery.
Who was the motion and a second for approval? Because I missed that part. I
Well-
got to rescind it.
We didn't do that.
We
We
didn't
just
do
said
that.
friendly.
So I need a motion and a second to approve with these friendlies.
Okay, I motioned and I don't know who seconded.
Okay, okay, and made them, make a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Then do we have to accept it?
Yes, you need a vote to approve and go to council tonight.
Approve or disapprove?
Okay, all right. we got the motion.
The sponsors have to.
Okay, all in favor?
Sponsors
Say
have
aye.
to accept it. The sponsors have to accept it.
They did.
They did? Okay.
Well, no, we haven't, not all of us have.
No.
We weren't asked. Well, yeah, I was a sponsor.
Okay.
I made the motion, the
Is it the
original
sponsor or the
motion.
person who's seconding it?
And I'll accept Dick's.
Yes, the person who's seconding it, yeah.
It's
You're right.
friendly.
You seconded
Okay,
it?
who's second?
No,
You?
I made the motion.
You made the motion, okay.
Okay, we're gonna vote on what was read to us, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Any, all opposed say aye. Okay, that passes and goes to the full council for approval tonight.
But that's for friendly amendment, right?
Yes.
Okay, now the language is there, now we gotta vote on the actual proposal. But we just vote on the friendly amendment.
If the person that did the motion and the second accepted the friendlies,
You don't have to vote on
then
it.
you just vote on the whole thing. You
And
don't,
they accept it.
the only time you vote on an
Oh,
amendment,
okay.
it's not a friendly. If those that did the first and the second didn't like the friendlies.
Okay, one last word from Barbara. Okay.
Through this, we need to add, the language "and spouses of the Cherokee veteran."
You're right.
I don't think it was in the amendment. That wasn't in there, was it, Nick?
I'm sorry?
No, it wasn't.
Was it not?
Here. Okay, now I can't hear, and I'm sure the rest of you can. Now, Barbara, you got the floor.
Okay, because one of the councilmen added "and spouses of the Cherokee veteran." So, we
That
would
wasn't an
need to.
amendment.
That wasn't an amendment.
We'll have to come back and address that later.
We'll have it at council. It can be addressed then.
Okay.
Why don't you all see if you get the grant first?
Mr. Chairman, also, Barbara, if you do not get funded for this, we will appropriate some funds for you to do a feasibility. Okay? It's not now or never.
Right, thank you.
Okay, any announcements? Any announcements?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Good job, Harvey.